Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order, that being the regular council meeting of Warwick Township Council of October 16th, 2023. I remind council of any disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest if you declare it at the proper time. I'll ask now, does anybody have any at this point in time? Thank you. I'd also like to welcome everybody tuning in on the Warwick Township YouTube page. I hope you enjoy the meeting today, and I'd like to acknowledge our ancestral lands. We acknowledge the land on which we are gathered here today. Township of Warwick is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, as well as the many indigenous nations in Ontario whose footsteps have marked them for centuries. We also wish to acknowledge that we are situated on Treaty 29 and Treaty 25 territories signed by Chippewa chiefs, and offer our respect and gratitude for these lands. Now I'll deal with number 5 on the agenda, council. That's the minutes of the previous council meeting. Did anybody have any questions? Those being the minutes of September 11th. Did anybody have any questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Manning. All in favor? That is carried. And there was no business arising from those minutes. Madam Deputy Clerk, thank you. Number 7, scheduled meetings and events. Excuse me, council, you see that there's a series of dates. I apologize, excuse me. In times, does anybody have any questions on any of those dates, times, or meetings? Seeing none. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Westgate.
Meeting on a Thursday, December 7th. I'll have to leave about 6. I was wondering if we could up that an hour or two.
So take it to 2:30 instead of 3:30?
Yeah, or 1:30.
So that being the budget meeting, council, of December 11th. Could we back that up?
That's fine with me.
All right, it's the consensus of the room that we will change that meeting. Treasurer, Trevor, you don't have any issue with that? Thank you. So we're going to back that meeting up. Madam Deputy Clerk, the December 7th meeting that was scheduled for 3:30 will now be 1:30. Can we get a motion to make that change? Yes, Councillor Morris, Councillor Westgate, seconding that. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, anybody else on any of those meetings and dates? Seeing none. We'll go to B, 7B, other meetings and events. Anybody have any questions there? The one that's mentioned is the Roma conference. And I know that Maddie has contacted all of council to ask if they're interested in going. We will try to get meetings with different ministers at that conference. We always have really good luck at that particular conference and getting, because it is a rural conference to start with. So anybody who hasn't already let Maddie know, please let her know. If you could, if you're planning on attending. Let's go to number 8, councillors' commitments and items. I'll start with you, Councillor Westgate. Any update on any of your times?
No, I have nothing today.
Councillor Morris.
I also have nothing today.
Deputy Mayor Kallenberg
Nothing to add at this time.
and Councillor Manning.
I have nothing to add.
All right, thank you very much. I have nothing to add as well. Let's go to 8B, councillors' items and verbal reports. I'm going to start with you, Councillor Manning. Did you have anything for council today?
I have nothing today.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Kallenberg,
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Morris,
I have nothing either.
Councillor Westgate.
And I have nothing.
Okay, I only have one thing today, and that's just I'd like to congratulate the Brook Alvinston Watford Fall Fair organizing committee and executive for another great job this year. I think anybody that attended the fair would say the same thing, that it was very well done as usual, and we'd like to congratulate them for all their hard work in putting it together. Let's go to staff items if we can. I'm just watching the clock because we have some timed events and we're in good shape. Let's go to staff items. We have a verbal update from Trevor Jarrett on Housing Affordability Task Force. Mr. Jarrett, please.
On September 15th, from the Minister Paul Calandra from Housing, Municipal Affairs and Housing, there is a letter that went out with 74 recommendations referenced for the Housing Affordability Task Force, at which they asked for 5 shortlisted that impacted various different municipalities, and we're just trying to get direction exactly what those 5 should be and go from there.
Thank you very much, Trevor. So did anybody have any questions or comments on the 3 items that were suggested by staff? It mirrored a lot of what the County of Lambton was looking at. And when that was sent through to my attention, it's one of those things that not everything that applies to larger urban municipalities, obviously they don't affect us the same way, but we definitely wanted to make sure that we commented. Did anybody have any questions or anything you wanted to add? Or is everybody good with that? Everybody's good with that? Well, there's a recommendation that goes along with the report. How does council wish to do with the recommendation to forward it on to county and other provincial government officials?
I'll move we go as recommended, as said.
Deputy Mayor Kallenberg is moving it, and Councillor Manning, you're seconding that. Thank you. Any further discussion on this particular report? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, let's go to 9B. We have a verbal update from Ryan Chammy, Parks and Recreation Manager, and it's the agreement with Mobile Care for their services at our community center. Ryan, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Case. Just a quick update. So the Canadian Mental Health Association, Lambton Kent, they were a delegation at a council meeting earlier this year and presented information regarding this proposal. There is a bylaw and an agreement within this agenda package that would essentially enter the township into an agreement with CMHA, Lambton Kent, for the Mobile Care Community Health Mobile Community Outreach Program to be offered at the what's being proposed, the East Lambton Community Complex in this south parking lot. Essentially, it's a community program that would offer Warwick residents access to an RV unit that's been branded and fitted with a medical treatment area and a counseling area, with the intention to provide physical health and mental health and addiction services to residents where necessary. No appointments necessary. The mobile care unit would operate, as I mentioned, in the South ELCC parking lot on a weekly basis. Dates and times for operation will be communicated to the municipality as they become confirmed, but it's looking like once a week, and it is on a pilot schedule. There's a number of neighboring communities, including Kettle Point, Alvinston, a couple of locations in Sarnia, Thetford, Stony Point is tentative that are looking to run this similar program with this same similar mobile unit. Service would begin either this week or early next week with a formal launch scheduled for Friday, October 27th.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Did anybody have any questions for Ryan on this particular item? Councillor Morris.
Ryan, I think this is a great opportunity and a great thing we're doing. Can we get this out on Facebook so people know it's going to be there, so they just don't see a great big van parked at the ELCC?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Morris. That's a great point, a great question. CMHA does have a communication plan that they have outlined to us. So they do have a strategy to push that word out throughout our community, through our neighboring communities. And we'll certainly link them up with our communications team to ensure we're getting that proper wording and messaging out to the community.
Okay, thank you. Did anybody else have any? Yes, Councillor Manning.
Yeah, Ryan, I was just curious, is there a way that we can have a measure of success with this? Like, is there going to be, without obviously breaching any ethics or confidentiality, but that we could have numbers on participation from the community involved?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Manning. That also is a great question and a great point. It's certainly something that I can discuss with CMHA. There obviously, as you mentioned or alluded to, there is confidentiality, throughout this type of program. However, I know part of their pilot project will be monitoring its use, determining, what types of uses and services they're providing and numbers. And I'm sure we will have access to that information and happy to supply that back to council when it comes to us.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? As Ryan mentioned, we will be dealing with this during the bylaws section of today's agenda. Unless anybody else has any other questions, I'll move on. Are we good? We're good. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to come back to timed events here in about 4 minutes. Let's go to accounts if we can, council. Did anybody have any questions on the GL report, that being 11A? Any questions on the GL report? I'm seeing none. Okay, let's talk about 11B, then the accounts payable. Did anybody have any questions on accounts payable? Yes, Deputy Mayor Kallenberg.
Just curious, it's an expensive JT equipment for the salt shed. I'm assuming that's maybe a rental or something. It's for like $10,000. So I was just curious as to what it might be for.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kallenberg. We took it upon ourselves internally to do some land clearing where the new salt shed could be planned. So we rented equipment and utilized it for a couple other projects.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any Anybody else have any questions on the accounts payable? Yes, Councillor Westgate.
You were buying clothing from, who's this Beach Embroidery Incorporated? I thought we had,
It's her, she's rebranded. It's the same company, she's moved and renamed herself.
Okay, anybody else have any questions on the accounts payable? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve both the GL and the accounts payable with one
I'll
motion.
move.
Deputy Mayor Kallenberg and seconded by Councillor Morris. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Just checking the time. Got a couple more minutes. Let's go to number 12, our consent agenda. Did anybody have any questions on the consent agenda, anywhere from A to F? So there's the non-action first. Did anybody have any questions or anything? Yes, Councillor Morris.
I'd like to talk about 10-54, if we could. This is the letter from the Tim Hortons Corporation regarding the Nauvoo Road and Confederation Line intersection. I gotta admit, he's written a good letter and I can't disagree with him on some of his points. I think we should look into this more closely and move it into maybe action rather than non-action.
So are you looking to make a motion then, Councillor, that we do a follow-up letter to this gentleman?
I think we need to explain to him why he's different than anybody else in the town of Watford or the Village Cook Township of Warwick regarding the setback in a 50-kilometer zone and why there's so many no parking signs. I understand the point about the shoulder not being strong enough for transports, et cetera, and we're looking into that. But I think we need to get back to him with a answer of why we did this rather than just we did it.
So I
I'll make
guess,
that a motion.
okay, so you're making a motion that we have further correspondence with him and communicating and maybe communicate our position a little more clearly. Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Councillor Manning, any further discussion on this one? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Anything else on the non-action side, council? Seeing none? Okay, anything from on B, C, D, E, or F that anybody would like to bring up? I can go through them individually. The minutes from the Waste Management and Use Committee seem to be very matter of fact. Anybody have any questions on that? Comments? Then we had the special council meeting of September 25th. Everybody's good with that. And we had the update on the policy for flags. I think everybody's good with that, unless I see somebody's hand go up. And we have the Parks and Recreation Operational Services update. I'm assuming everybody is good with that, not seeing any hand come up. And the Public Works update. Did anybody have any questions on the Public Works update? Seeing none. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to receive and file the correspondence outside of the part that was brought up by Councillor Morris and our correspondence to Tim Hortons. So I'm looking for a mover, moved by Councillor Manning and seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we got 1 minute, so we're going to back the bus up here, council, to delegations. And our first delegation today is Mary Hirsch, project manager from Spreets. She's here today to talk to us about our salt shed. Mary, would you like to come up, please? We'll get you up front where we can turn the microphone on and everybody can hear you. And we'll go from there. So welcome. And I'll let you decide which seat you would like to have again, we welcome you for being here today. And I mean, all you need to do when you're ready is just hit the button and then the floor will be yours.
Thank you, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about the salt shed that we sent out for tender. The low bidder was Acuitas Design and Build at $1,390,500. That is exclusive of HST. And that price includes contingency of $8,000. $8,000, yes. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? This did come in considerably over budget. That's one of the issues, reasons why we're talking today about it. It is a decision that council has to make later on. So did anybody have any questions of our guests today on the costing or justification of the costing? I don't see any. And again, we're looking at about, there's the piece here and then the agenda today, but it came in about approximately $300,000 more than what we budgeted for. And I talked to our treasurer today and we did put $1.1 million away last year in the budget. So obviously there's a shortage there that we're going to have to digest. But again, it probably won't be paid for. Well, it won't be paid for and it won't be constructed. So it'll affect next year's budget. So that 1.1 million will be extended into next year's budget. And if council chooses to go forward with the project, then obviously those new dollars will come in the next budget. Councilor Morris.
I have one quick question. Why do you think it is so much over budget? Is it, okay, they're short, they got a lot of work, so they're not in a hurry to do it? Or is it our timing, or will it be cheaper next year or more reasonable? I just wanted to get your opinion on some of these things.
Those are all very good questions. As for being cheaper next year, only the construction fairies know that one. Now, when we originally priced this, it was over a year ago. So pricing, as you know, was up and down still. Things are leveling off a little bit, but they're still not coming down as quickly as we would like. So those numbers, I'm going to say, are fair and reasonable. We did have one bidder who was a little bit lower, but he made an error on his tender form, so we had to disqualify him. Now that number that we gave you includes site work, demolition. So there was some site work that I guess brought it higher than we would like. And site work is the one that's, I guess, the most volatile because they're seasonal, right? And I'm going to say that's the number that we have to watch. Our building cost are in tune with what we budgeted like a year ago.
Follow up, Councilor Morris.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, for an example, if we decide to hold this off the next budget and we budget another $300,000 to bring this in line, do we have to re-tender it then? Or can this tender be held?
We can certainly ask the contractors if they would be willing to hold their numbers, but I'm going to say probably not.
Okay, anybody else have any questions to our presenter when it comes to the salt shed and the pricing? Yes, Councilor Westgate.
This price is still quite a bit lower than we figured before, right?
So what we did before was we had a larger size building and we scaled it down to try to fit the budget. So I wouldn't say that it's any less. It's just that we actually removed a portion of the building to try to fit the budget.
Anybody else have any questions when it comes to the salt shed? I don't know if anybody else has taken a look at the salt shed. I'm sure people have over the last couple of years. It literally looks like it's being held together with bicycle tubes and elastic bands. I know there's been a little bit of maintenance done, but it is in very, very poor repair. And unfortunately, we did shrink this project last year at budget time and tried to get a handle on this pricing. And unfortunately, the market being what it is, here we are today. So obviously, later on, we're going to be asked to make a decision on what we want to do. And Councilor Morris has asked a couple of good questions, but we don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. And it's getting to the point where it's, I would say it's getting closer every day to becoming more of a health and safety issue for our guys. So I'll leave it at that. Does anybody else have any questions, again, concerning this to our presenter today? I'm not seeing any. Well, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate the information and it helps us make our decision, I'm sure, at the end of the day. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a timed event at 4 o'clock, council, and that's a consideration meeting of the Parker Drain. We'll come back to it. I'm going to move ahead on our agenda. I'm going to go to 13 on the agenda, council. So we're now on 13A, and that would be action correspondence. So there's 2 items, as I said. I will read them out and council can decide whether they want to act upon them. The first one is 10-59. And that's the GTA strategies on the chronic pain crisis. Is anybody on that one? Not seeing anybody. Thank you. Then the second one is 10-60, and that's the Forest Kiwanis Santa Claus Parade. Just asking anybody on council if they'd like to participate. It's nice to have the invitation. We have our Santa Claus Parade. I'll remind everybody that same day, but in the morning. But if anybody's interested, just maybe let the deputy clerk know and we can make arrangements to have you placed in the parade. Okay. So I don't think there's any action from those, from what I'm seeing from council. So can we have a motion to receive and file the action correspondence? We got Councilor Morris and Councilor Westgate. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, 13B. And this is a proposed agreement with the conservation authorities. As everybody will remember, we did have on category 3 services. We did have a presentation not that long ago from one of the conservation authorities on this issue. And there is a recommendation attached to this, just trying to get the feel of council and what council would like to do. Are we interested in participating in this or not? The recommendation basically says that we should participate, recommendation from staff, but how does council wish to deal with it? Looking for a little bit of direction. Otherwise, there is a recommendation that council could move and accept if they saw fit. Looking for a little help. Deputy Mayor?
I think we need to continue to work with them. I'll make a motion that we go with the recommendation provided.
The mayor, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kallenberg. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Morris. Any further discussion on this issue, council? Seeing none. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, let's go to 13C if we could, please. And this is the new code of conduct that's being suggested. I guess the old one was last done in 2005. So there is a recommendation to look at the code of conduct and to change the code of conduct. I'm told in talking to our clerk who's away on holiday right now that this has been circulated through staff channels. And I don't think any comment had been received the last time that I talked to her. But again, she's been gone for a little bit. But how does council wish to deal with this? There's always an opportunity to table it if you have questions over and above. Councilor Morris.
Yeah, I got a couple questions on this. I see no place in this document where there's a definition of employee. Now, am I to assume that it's just the township employees, or does this include council and fire department members?
So I know it does not conclude council. Council has one of their own. I'm not sure on fire. I don't know. I'll look to the deputy CEO and see if he has any information on this. I'll ask you, Trevor.
I would like to circle back with the author of this paper before passing comment.
Well, that's the first question. I might as well give
you might as well.
deputy CEO the second
Go
question.
ahead.
The other thing that should be in this document is a definition of immediate family. Usually it's father, son, but usually it's listed. I don't want to have it where, especially for an example, if the fire department wasn't included in this, that a father and son could not belong together. I don't want to get ourselves in that position. So I'd like a definition on employees and a definition on immediate family, if I could, please.
Very good, and thank you. Thank you very much for your question. Did anybody else have any questions? So what I might do is, and I had some of the same questions that Councillor Morris has brought forward, and being that our CAO clerk is away today, I think maybe a tabling motion would be the right way to do this, because she would be back and we can ask the questions. So I'll make a tabling motion that we table this to our next regular council meeting. So it won't be the special one, which our next one will be the next one. And I don't know exactly what that date is, but maybe the deputy clerk can insert that date, November 13th, so that we table it till the November 13th meeting. And then we can ask those extra questions. So I'll make that motion if there's a second, or seconded by Councillor Morris. And it's a tabling motion. There's no discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Just going to check my time here. We're still good. So what we will do is we will move to 13D. And that's basically the NAVFU Confederation Line Intersection Improvements. And there's also a motion, pardon me, the staff is looking for direction on this one. Did anybody have any questions on this particular item? Pardon me? And also, this does need a lift from the table motion as well. So first off, let's do that. Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Manning. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. So again, how does council wish to deal with this particular item? It could be referred to budget. I mean, it's an expense that we'd have to look at. Councillor Westgate.
Really have my hand.
Thought I saw your hand up. A little quick on the trigger.
Say something on it. I think we can go ahead without the lights and without the parking spots for now. And I think it's sort of a safety issue there, and we have to go ahead with the construction.
So would that be, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I've already called on you. I didn't even have your hand up, but you said a lot of stuff there. I'm glad I called on you. Are you interested in rolling that into a motion, Councillor?
Yes, I am. Motion.
Okay, and that it would be part of that motion, defer it to budget for the financial side?
Yes, I think it needs to go through budget so we can finance it.
So everybody's clear on the motion? Do we have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Manning, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to do a time check here again, folks. We've got a couple minutes, so we'll keep going here. Let's go to E if we can, 13E, and this is the backflow prevention policy options for council's direction. This is something that we asked staff to look at. It's basically the Plimpton, Wyoming policy and how they deal with it. And I guess really at the end of the day, staff is looking for direction on this. How does council wish to deal with this? This is another perhaps budget issue. I'm not sure. Councilor Morris.
I think it's an excellent plan. The people asked us to come back with some answers. This is one, maybe not of all of them, but this is one answer we can get back to the people. And I think we should proceed with it. I don't think it's a huge budget issue. I think it's just got to be done.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And maybe what I'll do, I did have a chance to talk to Andrew about this earlier today. Just asked a couple questions about how it would work. We got lots of people in the community right now that are in the midst of doing this. And we want to make sure it's retroactive. I guess we need clarity from council that it would be retroactive to those folks if obviously there's a motion here to carry through. So maybe I'll call on you, Andrew, to talk about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Case. Yeah, I think it would be helpful if council gave direction that anyone that did go ahead, fill out the paperwork, pay for the approved backflow prevention was retroactive back to, say, the storm event date. And then we would just have to apply that to next year's budget. But so have it part of the council deliberations as far as next year's budget, and yeah, retroactive the program back to the 23rd, I think would be very helpful for the residents.
So that information is important for the folks that have already started the process. and not to be disqualified later on. So, Councilor Morris, I'm going to come back to you. Was that a motion that you were making? Not to put words in your mouth, just trying to get some clarity.
I
on
will
that.
put it in form of a motion with the part that Andrew meant about it being retroactive to the flood date. Hopefully everybody's done it to spec and could get the grant. I think it's something we at least offer the people as a help go. So I will motion that.
Very good. Thank you. Do we have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Westgate. Just one thing, and I'll go back to Andrew again. So there are very specific in that report, and everybody had a chance to read. There are very specific things that have to be done and followed to make one be able to qualify for such a grant. And it's laid out there. Andrew, maybe you want to just touch on that, just so everybody's clear?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Case. As Mayor Case mentioned, there are a number of things. You do need a building permit. There are two aspects of the program. There's a sump pump disconnect that has to be inspected, as well as if you were looking for the backflow prevention valve. That's a separate building permit. That's a separate piece to the component, and you would have to have documentation from the building inspector. You would need receipts from the licensed plumber that installed it. So you would have to make sure that you check all the boxes, and within the documents, there is a nice checklist to make sure that you have all the documents that are required to receive the grant funding.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I know it was in the report and it was well done, and Plimpton, Wyoming put that together back a while ago, and it makes a lot of sense. And it was asked for by some of our residents. So thank you very much. So we do have a mover and a seconder. I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, council, we're going to come back to 13F a little later on. It's now just shortly after 4 o'clock. I'm going to move forward with the consideration of the drainage reports dated October 16, 2023. So we're going to proceed into the consideration of the drainage report for the Parker Drain 2023. Please come up, Mike. So we'll give Mike a chance to get up here and get situated. And while Mike's getting ready, it's also my duty to state the following. Any petitioner has the right to withdraw from the petition. Does anyone wish to withdraw? I'm seeing no hands. Any other owners in the area requiring drainage have the right to sign the petition. Does anyone wish to sign the petition? I'm looking, seeing no one. If yes, they should make arrangements to sign the petition. I'm seeing nobody. And now, Mike, if you're ready, I'm going to turn it over to Mike DeVos of Spreets and Associates. And will you please explain your report, Mike? The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. This report was prepared in accordance with sections 4 and 78 of the Drainage Act. Section 4 is used to create a new municipal drain. So there are parts of this report which are new that were not municipal before. There may be private tiles there servicing the lands, but they weren't municipal. And then there's also improvement to the existing Parker drain. So an improvement can be putting a pipe beside a pipe or replacing an old pipe. It could be working on the open channel. So there are a number of components of this project that would be considered an improvement. The tile drain essentially is what started the project, and it has a couple different ages in the mid 60s and in the mid 70s it was done. So the landowners had requested that it be improved to today's design standards to accommodate flows and subsurface drainage in a manner that is consistent with today's recommendations. That means that we are looking at twinning parts of the drain where the existing drain is still has sufficient depth and is in good enough condition to use, and then replacing other portions that are in poor condition or have substandard depth, as well as in this case, we're extending branches B and C upstream and then creating a new branch D, another tile drain, as well to service some lands west of the main drain. There is some minor maintenance / improvement to the open channel downstream, more so to protect the channel from erosion, and as well provide some maintenance to the existing design. It was not intended to alter or improve the capacity of the channel. But more so just maintenance and erosion control. There will be new catch basins placed throughout the drains watershed along the routes of the new drains to try and capture as much surface water as we can. Obviously, there's going to be rain events, and we've had a recent rain event that is going to far exceed anything that is going to be accomplished through a tile drain system. But the idea is to capture a little more surface water, get it underground so that the duration and the frequency and the intensity of how much water is going over land versus underground is a little bit less. So we do caution landowners that we're not trying to capture all the water. There is a grass waterway through a significant portion of the main drain, which will take excess flows and protect it. We are going to need to repair the grass waterway in places during that construction. We're not looking at deepening or widening or making the waterway bigger or better than what it was, just to restore it to the way it is in the current state. And I think I'll stop and open up to questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike. First, I'm going to ask Andrew, our drainage superintendent. Do you have any comments to make, Andrew?
I do not.
All right, well, thank you very much. And does anyone who is present wish to ask any questions or make any comments? I'm seeing none. Thank you. So in that case, if the report is approved, the bylaw will be given first and second reading later in this meeting. Or, and I guess nobody's asking any information, we look into getting further information, but seeing that that's not the case, we will leave it to at the end of the meeting and deal with it through bylaws. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending and thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
13F is we're going to go back to 13F council, and 13F is the salt shed tender. And there's also a recommendation around that. We just had a brief conversation about that with representatives from Spreets, trying to give an explanation why this came in so much more over budget for the second time, not just the first time. So I guess basically what I'm asking council is how they wish to deal with this recommendation and what their thoughts are. So I'll open the floor up for that kind of conversation.
I think we need to
Deputy Mayor Kallenberg.
I think we need to refer this to budget and see where we want to go with it. Whether we can use this tender or not, that's yet to be determined, but it is quite a bit more than we thought, but we don't know what's going to do either, so.
So the motion was to defer it to budget. Deputy Mayor,
Yes, it was.
is there a seconder to that? Councillor Morris? Okay, further discussion. Councillor Westgate.
Can we refer to budget? When,
Go back. The bid that we got in. I apologize. The bid we got in is good for 60 days. So if we defer it to budget, we'll have to go back out to tender next year. Negotiate further, but they have the right to up.
Follow up, Councillor Westgate.
I was just wondering if we go ahead and build the shed. The shed's in a different spot than where the one is now, and take some of the demolition out of the existing one for now. And that will get it down roughly to our budget. I think the demolition and site work was $200 and some thousand. But I don't think we should hold off on getting the salt shed built.
So I will ask Andrew if that's something, or even our deputy CEO, if something that can be done within the tender that was sent out, if we could subtract that portion, as Councillor Westgate has suggested. Is that doable within the tender? Does that affect the tender at all? I guess that's the question that's being asked. We'll look for some clarity.
Thank you, Mayor Case. My understanding is that we do have the right to negotiate within tenders. So we'll have to, we'll go back to our friends at Spreets and ask them to guide us through the process to negotiate with the recommended contractor to see if we can eliminate the demolition of the building.
Councillor Westgate.
The demolition can't be done until we have the new one built anyway. So maybe it won't be done until next year. And we won't have to pay for it until they do the work. So But I think we should go ahead and get this done. We've been screwing around with this salt shed for 15 years.
Counselor Manning.
So I think this would be more for Andrew. So if we were to go back and renegotiate, would that portion of the tender be retendered in the future? Or would that be considered that if we award it to them and they start construction, that that's just put on hold under the basic tender, or under the standing tender?
Yeah, I think that'll just be part of the negotiation. If we can just tell them to, I think like Councillor Westgate mentioned, if we can have them put that off to the end. So that's a line item that we leave for the end. I think that's what we would have to do, take that approach, go back to the contractor. At the end of the day, I guess it doesn't really change the contract. It's still going to be at the price that they submitted. So I'm not sure if it really answered your question or not, but
No, I appreciate that. We do now, again, any further discussion, I guess my 2 cents worth is that I think this is long overdue as well. As much as we were all surprised and amazed that this price coming in that much more, I think Councillor Westgate makes a very good point. If we can remove that piece of the contract when it comes to dismantling the old building and put it off, it gets it back into that same price range. And if that's something that the contractor will honor, the price minus that portion of the contract, I think it's took us the job done. And I think there was an October date to start on this particular project if it was approved. Am I correct?
so as far as the start date goes, there wasn't a specific start date, but there was a substantial completion date of April of next year. April of next year, and then a final completion of June.
Okay, thank you very much for correcting me on that. So yes, Deputy Mayor Kallenberg.
I guess after the discussion, I think Jerry's made a valid point, so I probably should withdraw my motion.
As a seconder, okay with that as well? Thank you very much. Further point, Councillor Morris.
So this completion won't be until April of next year. So it'll be after budget. So we'll have an idea then how we stand, whether it stays erect, the old one, or we tear it down, I guess. But especially if the contractor will agree to that, I guess is the big thing, or whether we have to get a different contractor to do the demolition. I have no problem with that either.
So we should, and I appreciate the good discussion. So we should probably have something formal and a motion that gives direction to our staff to go back and renegotiate this with the contractor. Price minus demolition, which gets it back into that neighborhood we were first talking about. So there should be a motion that council gives direction to staff to go back and negotiate that and come back with their findings. Now, if they can negotiate it, it would also probably be good to have it in that motion that they continue on. They don't have to bring it back to us in a month's time. So I'll throw that out there to council to see what council would like to do with that, but I would need a motion to give direction to staff. Councillor Westgate.
I would make that motion that we go ahead and get the building erected, and if we can take the demolition part out. And we can do that ourselves next year, or we have a contractor in town that would probably do it cheaper than what they can do it. And it'll be a subcontractor that's doing it for them anyway, I would hope or think. So I think if we can get that part out, go ahead with the whole thing. If we can't, we'll just let them do the demolition next year.
Okay, so everybody understands the motion. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Deputy Mayor Kallenberg. Any further discussion on that motion from anybody in council? No, staff. Is it clear? Wayne, Councillor Morris.
Just one clarification there. So if this company does not agree to drop the demolition, we are still proceeding with it? Just want to make sure I understand this.
I would say from what the discussion is that we would be bringing it perhaps back to council if they choose not to. It's a negotiation. We're giving our staff the freedom to negotiate. We've told them what we want. So if Andrew is successful in getting them to hold the price minus the demolition portion, then they're to proceed. That's what this motion would say. If they said no, then it would have to come back to council again. Am I correct in that, Councillor Westgate?
Yes, I think we have to do it that way. We can't just let them do it one way or the other. But
so is that clear to everybody? Okay, so I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any new business of council today? Looking around the room, see if anybody has new business. There's none otherwise. Okay, well, this is going to end the public portion of our meeting today. We are now going to go into closed session. I need a motion to move in camera into a camera for the meeting pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act to deal with 1, 2, 3, and 6 of the Municipal Act. Who would like to do the honors? Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor Manning. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much.